I watched 6 hours worth of Ludwig teaching different streamers how to become a better streamer, how to almost reach his level if it's possible, if the dice rolls in the right direction. And I created a few slides just to talk through what I've learned and what I appreciated about his teaching. Call it a Ludwig's blueprint. We'll see. Again, we'll talk about my levels of creativity. But it was really cool to see. So essentially what Ludwig has done in the Stream University, he taught 4 classes plus office hours, which essentially total up to be like 5.5 hours. And then he also met with another streaming group for another like 40 to 50 minutes and spoke with them at his office about some of the things that they can do better. And through all of this, I basically distilled and summarized some of the things that I saw there, and just that resonated with me. It's not comprehensive. It doesn't touch on everything that he said. I highly recommend for you to go check it out, or I don't know, like run through Gemini or something and get yourself a summary of all the notes that he shared, because there was a lot of useful information. And if you're a young, new creator, even if you don't stream, I highly recommend for you to check it out, because just the way he presents the information and some of the things and advice that he gives to people who ask him questions during office hours is super useful. Like type of things, and selfishly, type of stuff I would talk to creators about. I taught in my class at the Creator Now vidIQ, right? Like I've done those things as well, but he's a lot more articulate in some of these areas. And of course, he also lived this, right? Like I'm a guy, you see my subscriber count, my view count. You don't have to compare it to Ludwig. It's okay. But it's just his numbers, I think, validate a lot of his experience a lot better. Mine is more distilled through me working with a lot of creators of that size or smaller. First and foremost, let's jump straight into it, because enough of the intro. Young and Twist kind of like is an interesting idea that I like. It's also what you see some folks in the past, like Colin and Samir, like to also refer to it as still like an artist. The whole idea is you don't have to always come up with a completely new ideas, right? Like you can go look at your niche, type of content that you're making, look at who are doing similar things and what are some of the video concepts that they've created, right? Like is a certain series, like it's like this $1 versus blah 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 dollar stuff. It's like 1-star reviewed, 5-star reviewed, right? Like there are a lot of interesting forms. Stayed at the place for 24, 8, 12, 36 hours, whatever, right? Like there's some interesting concepts and patterns that you can find out there. And then you can ask yourself, like, hey, within my niche, if no one does something like this, but I see this format popping in some of the other niche, can I yank it, steal it, and maybe inverse it for my own industry and make an interesting piece of content out of it, is right? Like I don't know, I talk a lot about the business. I talk a lot about the business of being a creator. 1-star versus 5-star creators business software, something like that, right? Like maybe not the most enticing thing, but a certain type of people who are in certain type of industry, that can be very interesting, right? Like you can ideate and come up with those formats. And then the second part is kind of like exploit them as much as possible. If something sticks, it works, and just keep going back to it, back to it, back to it until the wells run dry, until you see, say, whatever your view count may be. If your average video gets like 5,000 views, maybe it's 10,000 views. Find a new format. Okay, it does this format consistently hit 10,000 views. And once it starts dipping below 10,000, maybe it's time for you to come up with a new format. And that's where the refresh point is important. And I always like to use Ryan Trahan as an example, because I think he does it very well. As you tap back into the popular format that really worked for you, don't forget to also throw in additional experiments. Look elsewhere in the other categories, in the other niches. Find an interesting format over there. Adapt it, see if it works. All of a sudden, if it pops at the same level or even higher than that current format that you're exploiting, okay, maybe it's time to switch, or maybe now you can just switch between the two each video, right? Like one in one format, one in the other format, one in one format. And again, you monitor the performance up until the point you see they start dip, and hopefully by then you're already running the next experiment. So Ryan Trahan, I think it does like 3 and 4, right? Like 3 videos, I usually tap into the existing prior kind of like working example that he's exploiting, and then he experiments with one and he sees how it performs. And that's how, like, for example, I stayed in a 1-star hotel, Airbnb, and whatever. Like, he tried it once, it really popped, and you can see him repeating that format multiple times through his channel. So that's kind of like an important one. And the third one, and it's something, again, I live by, I've been uploading for now, I think it's already happened. I think it's I think it's like July 27th. I always forget when I uploaded the first video, but I think as of right now, it's officially been 9 years of weekly uploads. Never missed a week. Sometimes even posted more than once a week. But I strongly believe in that. I became a better creator. I'm not the best of the creators, but I became a much better creator, superior creator to my own version 9 years ago, thanks to the fact that by now I have what it makes like 9 times, call it like 50, so it's 450 plus long form videos that I've made, at least, right? And there's probably a little bit more plus all the shorts. I think I'm at like 1.3, 1.4 thousand videos overall on my channel. And I learned so much. I became a better presenter in my real life. I became better a communicator. I think I learned so many skills throughout the process of going through this consistency approach, right? Like, yes, idea may suck for this week, but you know what? I'll do my best of it. I'll ship it and I'll kind of like move on to the next one. It kind of conflicts a little bit with how I think Ludwig, in one of his sessions, someone asked him, I was like, oh, wait, but if the video is not that good, should you still post it? He actually said, like, no, delay, maybe skip a week. I'm a believer, no, suck it up, post it, learn from it, right? Like, post it, look at it, it's going to be the badge of shame for you. Like, it's a badge of shame out there. You maybe misplanned something, you didn't think through the idea, you didn't really work well on it. So I kind of like, I treat them as like mini scars, right? Like there's some videos I look back, I cringe, but I'm like, I'm not going to take it down. That's a reminder for me that there were the days where I came up with a concept like assembling the shoe shelf. That was a fun one. But it was my experimentation stage. It was very early, but would I let anyone do that video right now? Absolutely freaking not. But it's out there. I did it. I tried. I experimented. I was playing around with like camera angles. I remember, and all sorts of things. So I actually learned a lot, and it informed some of the learnings that I had about, especially top-down recording, informed some of the future videos when I start like copying, and I had the whole like tech review segment of my career, and within it, it's actually informed a lot how well I was able to structure my top-down shots for the tech reviews, which was both inspired by like looking at someone like Marquise Brownlee, but also like from that experience, I learned a lot of mistakes in terms of like how hard it is to set up the top-down camera. Small example, but this is the kind of experience you learn by just being out there and consistently posting and not worrying about like skipping the week just because the video idea didn't work out. Like that's the only difference. And as I said, that's my personal opinion versus Ludwig's. But if you're the kind of person like you don't want to have like shame out there on your page, everything needs to be perfect. I mean, you do you, but I'm a strong believer. Don't take down those videos. If the video sucked, it stays there. It's going to be always a constant reminder for you that you should do better. Next, talk a little bit about the packaging. So there was ideation. Let's talk about packaging. And it's an important one. I still need to work on this. Transparently, one of those things that really helped me back in the day was Spotter Studio. I really found it to be useful. I was in the partner program there, so I got it for free, which was cool. And it was really helpful. Being able to ideate and go through the different ideas for the titles and thumbnails was super helpful for me because I'm not as good at it as I should be. But I got better. Again, looking back at all of my thumbnails through the years, you can see kind of like they evolve. I kind of like the format I'm using right now, so it just kind of works for me, makes my videos look uniform. I like it. Doesn't mean it's the best format. Definitely not. There are way better thumbnail designers out there, right? But from the perspective of learnings, it was very important for me to kind of like get there from the packaging perspective. And one of those things is kind of like, right, from the streaming perspective specifically, just to focus on that for a second, that whole idea of reverse engineering and thinking about, okay, what is the final output of your content? And this was very specific for streamers, which I actually never spoke about streaming before, which was kind of cool for me even to learn, right? But I really like that idea of don't approach the streams as like, I'm just going to turn on the camera, just going to record and blab and talk to my chat, engage, like throw some jabs back and forth. Ludwig actually really recommends to approach it as like a professional of like, okay, we have a stream today. What are some of the pieces of content and formats are we doing today? Are we like playing a game? Are we talking to a chat? Are we playing some sort of like an online game? Do we have someone joining and we banter about something, right? And he's interesting thinking through it's almost like a segments, right? Like as a TV channel, if you're switching through and there's like a news segment, there's sports segment, there's weather segment, right? Like he thinks through that as segments. And then each segment becomes its own potentially short form video, potentially VOD, right? Like a video on demand, long form video, and that becomes that structure. So you're no longer just wasting your time recording and then hoping to kind of like look at that recording that was like 5-6 hours long or pass it to your editor and say like, go figure out if there's anything interesting in there. Absolutely not. You design interesting moments by thinking through them and saying, okay, maybe right now I'm going to react to this video for 40 minutes. And then for the next 40 minutes of the stream, I'm going to banter a little bit with the chat, have a snack or something, right? Then for the next 40 minutes, I have this game that I want to play. And he thinks through this. That becomes a useful use of the time. And instead of streaming there uncontrollably for 8 hours, for example, without design, he streams only for 4 hours, but he spends the other 4 hours that he freed up to actually ideate and think how to make the most of those remaining 4 hours when he actually going to record. And instead of, again, the output of one long kind of like recording of your stream, you have that and you can drop it somewhere on the YouTube channel or keep it on Twitch, Kick, whichever platform you're using. But then you can segment and cut those things in pieces and actually create interesting pieces of content on other platforms to promote your content. Algorithmic hook, something I spoke about, 60 seconds for introduction. That's kind of like what they've been talking about. I genuinely think it's honestly like 15 probably, right? Like that's something that I've observed, is that even from my behaviors, right? Like I click, you immediately look for validation of the packaging, right? So whatever the title and thumbnail was, as I click on the video, I expect it to have validating information, confirmation that if you're about to tell me about that you're gonna go and, I don't know, prepare a meal from the time when Odysseus supposedly was there, one of the first things I should probably see you either show or talk about that. You should show a meal, you show the drink, or you talk about Odysseus, right? Like something there going on. And then I don't recall which creator said it, but the whole idea is, I think Mr. Beast was one of those. You continuously create open loops. You close the loop, you open loop, you close the loop, you open loop. So meaning you open the loop by introducing an idea, a tension, a conflict, something that kind of like creates a story point that then as you close within that, you open the next loop, right? And through these loops, you kind of extend the retention. Don't ask me to do it. I found my format. I vibe with the current format. I switched a few formats. This one really works for me because I like to ad lib some stuff, right? Like I was a lot more scripted in the past. Now I have talking points and I talk to them because like that's my experience. I have enough knowledge that I can go and fire off a bunch of information straight off the top of my mind. But it's also from the perspective of work and lifestyle and everything else. I don't have time sitting there editing 3 hours every day like I used to, right? So I had to mitigate and change my format based on how my life changed, right? But I've seen, and you can think of your favorite videos, how well they structure this and how well it ties it. Same goes for great movies. In my personal experience, don't limit yourself just to looking at the videos. Look at great movies. See how they build a narrative. Like I mentioned Odysseus, like go watch Odysseus and see how Christopher Nolan created. There's open loops and there's open loops on open loops and kind of like how the story evolves and slowly ties together until the very end. I think he does it very well in his movies. Memento is another great example that opens a bunch of loops and then slowly they start kind of like closing. But again, look at other genres, pay attention to this. But the main thing is like think about how do you hook people in and how do you keep them engaged. And coming back to the packaging, the visual psychology is very important, right? Like thinking about the positioning on the thumbnail, thinking about the brightness of colors, thinking about like contrast between something on the foreground, something on the background. Those are the important things. It's a lot to learn overall. And what I've suggested in the past to creators, don't try to do all of it at once. The best thing that worked for me is that I would pick themes. I would pick, say, okay, I know I make weekly videos. So for the next, say, 2 months, 8 videos, all I'm focusing on is sound. Like my sound sucked back in the day. Probably, I don't know, if you're a more professional engineer, you're probably still like, dude, it's not that bad, not good either. But it's much better than what it used to be. And the thing that happened is that I just picked one day and I was like, I'm just going to really focus on and I'm going to spend the spare time that I have outside of like working and family and kind of like ideating for the next video, researching for the next video. I'm going to carve out a little bit of time and I'm going to research what the good sound looks like. And you watch a bunch of videos about microphones, sound, how to position it, where to position it, how close it should be to your mouth and how loud or not loud you should be speaking, right? And you slowly figure it out, or even audio editing. And then I was like, okay, now I'm going to improve thumbnails. So now I carve out time and I learn about thumbnails. I learn about color theory. I learn about like primary colors and those kind of things. Where do you need to look? What the kind of like facial expressions you need to do? You start watching, people talk and make videos about thumbnails and kind of like learn from them, right? And that way you kind of like move through one topic after the other and you just improve it a little bit. You don't have to be the hero and the best at everything. Whether you're in the streaming space, whether you're in short form, long form, I strongly believe just focus on one theme, do it for the next couple of months, really improve yourself. Don't be an expert. You don't have to be there. But if you're equally dangerous, so to speak, across different variant categories of this, like ideation, like packaging, I promise you, you're going to be in the top probably 2 to 3% of the creators, because a lot of the creators don't spend time on it. A lot of the creators are trying to go and right away go higher. You probably don't have the budget to do that. And if you do, good on you. But even when you hire someone, how are you going to give them the guidance on what the good looks like if you don't understand it? And again, it's like in regular 9 to 5 job, like I'm not an expert in every single thing my team does, but I'm dangerous enough when I can understand if it's going in the right or wrong direction. And then I trust my team who I hire within those specific roles to become way better than I am and take it to the next level. Nothing different is in the creator space. As hopefully your channel grows, your presence grows, you can say hire an editor and you can tell them about storytelling hooks, and hopefully they will go and take it and learn it and really focus on this, and they become an expert on it, and that makes your content better. Or you work with a thumbnail designer and there's a certain style you want them to pursue, and you teach them, you educate, you guys work side by side, you provide them with a lot of constructive feedback, and then eventually they go to the point where they can outperform and create way better thumbnails and the best thumbnails out there, right? Like, and that becomes kind of like an improvement on your channel. But again, it all starts with you understanding some of these base concepts that you cannot escape from if you're serious about making this your long-term thing. This was a small item that I feel like just builds up on the prior point that we just made a little bit earlier about like structuring and thinking programmatically through your stream. The other interesting part was the reminder that you can still have filler content. That's cool. Like you should be using filler content as a way to like engage with your audience, build out the audience, build out like inside jokes, some things and memes and stuff within it so that they feel tighter, they feel more united as a community. You absolutely should be doing this. No one cancels it. And you can even potentially put it as additional type of format segments, like, stand-up comedians do when they work the crowd. These days, many stand-up comedians, that's how they promote their specials, them at different clubs, right? They no longer post jokes and segments from their specials so that they don't take away from kind of like value of you watching the special or coming to see them live. What they use these days a lot, and I see a lot of stand-up comedians do, they use the banter with their audience and back and forth and interesting stories that the audience tell them, they react to, make jokes about it. They use it as promotional content. Nothing stops you if you're a streamer, right? Like leverage that banter, leverage that back and forth with your audience, put it in its own segment and maybe use it to promote and show people like, hey, it's worth for you to watch me stream because look how much fun we're having over here. But then nothing stops you from having a meat and potatoes and actually having segments that are pre-programmatically like thought through and designed in terms of like you have certain segments that you're doing. You're still going to have the banter, you're still going to have your community reacting, your chat reacting to all of those things, but now they have a much more solid plan. They actually have specific future, so to speak, whether it's as a VOD, whether it's as a short form content, whether it's some other format that you're working on. So I think that's an important one. A little bit about the money, worth talking, because it was interesting to see, right? Because as a streamer, you might anticipate that, hey, like this is my main way out how I make my money. But it was interesting to see from someone like Ludwig, it's like live subscriptions are still there. It's almost a third of the business, but the other third of the business is still coming from the sponsors. So you're doing maybe some other engagements, maybe you consult, maybe you run events, some other things. And the big portion is still coming from the VOD, meaning the video on demand, meaning you posting stuff on YouTube, because Twitch VOD is non-existent. You can discount that, forget about that one. I think Kick is in a similar way. So it's YouTube. So taking and using those programmatic formats, putting them on YouTube and gaining your sponsorships over there. Sponsor money in the sense of like AdSense. What I meant also to say that you can still get after the sponsors in that segment as well. And you can still leverage those VODs to go and put some additional sponsor segments because you can cut them and slice them, right? And Ludwig was mentioning the fact that for some of the videos, he provides intros, right? Because the segments can kind of like roll into one another without the proper intro, without him standing in front of the camera and kind of like giving you a little bit of a pitch at the beginning. So he records those after, right? Based on his editor's feedback, based on looking at how the format went and whether it needed maybe a little bit of a better introduction, setup of the stakes at the very beginning. You can do the same and insert somewhere the ad placements, right? And kind of like in this video, this portion of the video is sponsored by, this was presented to you, and minute to talk about the sponsor, whichever way you want to introduce it. But you now have an ability to go and monetize same pieces of content, not only as a subscription, not only as an AdSense generator, but also as potential sponsorship segment, right? So especially if you're talking about certain topics that fit the audience and the people that that sponsor is targeting. So I think it was an interesting reminder, and not included here kind of like a lot of like physical products, things of that nature, because I genuinely think not everyone should be jumping into this, right? Like I love, and you can go find or ask me and DM me, and I can send you my videos about like thinking about physical products and how to develop interesting physical products and even digital products. But genuinely, and that was, I think, the advice Luke didn't give to that, and I apologize, OSOC, I'm forgetting. Sorry, I'll look them up and I'll put them in the description. They seem to be like fun guys. But the streaming group, they essentially had a question like this, and they were like, hey, we want to do Patreon, hey, we want to do like maybe merch and have like some like lifestyle brand. Ludwig didn't push them back on this. I would have. because I think, and it was kind of like implied, I think, in his presentation, but I think it's important to remind, and I always like to remind you, if you're a creator and you're thinking about it, like if you're still figuring out the content side of things, you're still figuring out ideation, packaging, being consistent, do that. Do that for the next year. Don't worry about Patreon. Don't worry about digital products. Don't worry about designing logos and putting out t-shirts and hats and whatnot. Just get good at content. Content at the end of the day is your source of attention, is your source of future revenue. That's how people find you. And if it's not good, no matter how banger of the product you created, there won't be audience out there to buy it. And even out of that audience, it's still going to be the fraction of the audience, right? Like who will actually convert to paying, subscribing to you, doing other things. So because of that, I'm kind of like skipping this on this bubble, kind of like circle chart, pie chart. Those are the three areas, right? Like get good, get some live subscriptions from people subscribing to your channel. As you post those VODs, hopefully they start like hitting the traction, you get monetized through that, and hopefully that means that some of the sponsors notice and folks come, and whether they come to talk to you about like, hey, you clearly understand this topic well, can I hire you for consulting? That happened to me in the past. Although with my size of the channel, people still saw like, hey, you really understand this segment of investment, this segment of creator economy. Can we talk to you because we're building a product and we want to have someone's opinion on what we're missing, right? Like you can get that in your niche. Like you don't need to have millions of people to get that. I know plenty of creators who make full-time living and their subscriber count or follower count is in like thousands and tens of thousands. But their expert opinion matters that much for that specific niche that they can still take care of their family and not have to work 9 to 5. So that's your future. You can get there through all of this area. But for now, those are the two areas that you need to focus on and really focus on making great content. And final important part, which was, I think, I know it about the creator economy in general, we're going to talk about it in a second, but even the statistical reality of becoming Twitch partner, right? For example, and we're focusing on Twitch, Kick is its own story, and maybe one day we'll spend more time talking about that. But this is the stats. And this is the reality that you're facing, right? Like, and the funny thing is that although it may seem like it's such a big number, I think the stat was is like something like 50% of the people of this number, right? 6.9 million, never go live second time. So if you're a streamer and you went live twice, you already kind of like pushing yourself to the top of this audience. And then as you stack up the streams, as you start building the formats and engaging more, you very quickly going to navigate towards like the top 5% of the streamers. I promise you that, right? Like maybe not monetarily, but from the perspective of the performance and presence and being there. Like I know from my perspective, being a creator, like I don't know that many channels who truly like a single creator. I think Tom Scott is kind of like my North Star and someone I'm kind of competing because he's been posting before his break for like almost like 10 and a half years weekly. So that the goal, that's the benchmark. I want to beat that. But there are plenty of other creators in my space who like don't post nearly as much. They post once in a while and they're technically are a creator, but I know I'm putting myself in a league of my own, kind of like with my consistency, right? And it kind of like gives me my own benchmark. For you, going live consistently, producing content consistently will put you already in the top percentages of the creators who are out there. I promise you that. So from there on out, you kind of start engineering your success towards building up better teams, building kind of like, better formats, more interesting things, engaging with the community, building a stronger community. All of that happens as you get better at some of these earlier things that we discussed, right? And the reason why I also like this percentage, I think it's important to highlight is that don't go into this thinking that the only way you define your success is by saying, I have to be IShowSpeed, I have to be Kai Cenat, I have to be Ludwig or whoever. That's not a good benchmark for success because your success will be very unique to you. I started my conversation very early on when I was talking about like consistency and how me posting so regularly improved me in so many other areas. Like that was my benchmark of success. Like I have this metric in my mind that I tell sometimes when people ask me, I want a single person to benefit from one of my videos. That's it. Like that's the point of success. If there's one person out there who looked at my video and said, oh my God, like you gave me an interesting idea. Oh my God, like you helped me make a decision. You helped me improve in a certain area. We won. Like that's it. We hit everything else from there is icing on the cake. Genuinely. So that's my approach. That's my definition of success. And so all other things become just exciting tangential benefits. Like what I've mentioned in the past, where I became better, I think, presenter. I became better at talking through complex topics. Like I gained so much knowledge. I use my content. The other thing I don't frequently talk about, when you see me talk about some random, say, business topic or some other topic, it could be that it was just driven by the fact that I was so interested in researching that kind of like topic, that for me, making a video became a vehicle to learn about it. Like opening, and not OpenAI, but like Chinese AI models that I spoke about a couple of weeks ago, that was exactly it. It wasn't because I was like, oh my God, this is going to be the best video possible. I just came to realize, I was like, man, I've used Gemini, OpenAI's, ChatGPT, like Claude, but I have no clue about Kimi K, like Moonshot, Quen, all those other things. Like what's happening out there, right? Like on the other side of the Pacific, so to speak. And I was like, the best way for me to do it, I'll make it the topic for a video. I'm going to go through it, I'm going to learn it. And that was a success. So success for that video. Hopefully it still helped one. That's like a given. That's something that I have across all of my kind of like videos as an expectation. But the other part of the success there was the fact that now I know so much more about those models, right? And I've done it a lot through a lot of different topics in terms of like forcing myself to go through the process of trying to distill information from certain other source makes me better and more informed, makes interesting more content for you, but also in general becomes this additional criteria of the success for each piece of content that I work on. So, and that's what keeps me engaged. Genuinely, like that's why when people ask me, they're like, hey, but like you're not, right, like you're not in this percentage, right, you're not making money, you're not monetizing, you, not everyone knows about you. But in my opinion, like the right people who benefit from me know me. That's cool. But in reality, and ultimately it comes back from me, it's like my success, my definition of success is achieved because I learn, I get better. And that's ultimately the most important part. I get better, I can benefit, I can do other things. And so for you, coming back, whether it's Twitch, whether it's other part of the creator economy, don't define success by the numbers. Like genuinely, subscriber counts are dead, like view counts even, they're also dead because you don't know the quality of the viewer, right? Like how fit they are for that specific niche that you're in. Just focus on defining tangible success points that actually do not rely on you just quantifying how much money you made specifically from that video, how many views you got, how many subscribers you got, right? Like define other ways of success, whether it's personal growth, whether it's growth within other people, your community who you're trying to affect, or other types of things that you're doing that you feel like can be like, hey, I'm like planted a number of trees, or I saved a number of like sheltered dogs or something like this. Like whatever within your niche matters, make that the definition of success and not some arbitrary numerical number that you don't have direct control about. And finally, I inserted a lot of things for myself personally, but coming back to Ludwig, last three things that I wanted to call out from his presentation. Number one, which I think was super cool thing to hear, I think critical and a lot of people forget about it, is authenticity. Meaning, don't try to play for the certain specific short form video that you have in mind that's going to go viral because of it's going to trigger some people or something, right? Like you playing a character, you're basically clip farming, you're trying to focus on very specific items that show how crazy you are, how engaging you are. But then in reality, when people tune into your stream or check out your VOD, they see a very different person, maybe more mild, more like soft spoken, not as crazy as they saw in the chat. And it's going to create the dissonance, right? Like it's going to create dissonance that they were sold one version of you, but they see the other. That's where like someone like IShowSpeed makes sense, because I think that dude is always like that. Unless he's sleeping or he's completely tired, I feel like he's always the same, which kind of like comes across as such, right? Like for me, I also made it the choice, and I've tried and experimented, but in reality, like what you're getting from me, my friends, my coworkers can attest you, they get the same exact person as you getting. And that also helps me because long term, as I make more content, as I explore, as I develop things, I'm not playing a character. I'm playing myself. And there's genres out there that actually playing a character is your thing, which is fine. Sting to a character is important if that's what your audience seeks. But for others who are essentially, you're just a creator and you're speaking about interesting topic that you're passionate about, just be yourself. If you're soft spoken, if you're not talking as fast as I am, if you talk very like, half of the amount of words that come out of me in every second, like that's cool. That's you. And your audience will love you for you. So stay that, and it's going to allow you that consistency and longevity, because you'll be able to last longer because you're yourself. You're not playing some character that you're going to get tired of being. Focus is another one. I kind of like addressed it a little bit earlier. And again, from Ludwig's perspective, when he was talking about focus, it was more about like focus on formats, focus on a couple of things and do them well within content space, but I would expand it towards everything else. Don't try to go and pursue a bunch of brands while you're still navigating the content. Don't try to do physical digital product while you're still navigating the content. Even within the content, don't try to be the best thumbnail, the best editor, the best whatever visual effects if you're using them, the best writer, blah 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 blah. It's like Pick a topic and go. Pick a topic, pick a area of improvement, focus on that, improve yourself, move on to the next one. And then finally, the discipline of disengagement. And I think that's a critical one, especially if you're like a streamer and you stream every day. It's not all about that. Have life, have experiences outside of it. Someone, and again, you see, there is a theme. I'm terrible with names, but there was a person who once said, it's like, what makes you a great creator or creative is you living life. You being out there, you experiencing things, not with a camera pointing at you, because it always will create some aura of like, not fakeness, but artificial aura, right? Like you're gonna pose in a certain way, you're gonna speak in a certain way, you're gonna, once the camera is on, it's gonna kick in. It kicks in for me still, right? But when you're out there, just experience life. Go out there with friends, with family, by yourself, learn things, experience things, learn hobbies. That's one of my favorite things to do. Like pick up a hobby that's very different, pick it up for a year, do something. It opens up like, interesting pieces of content because I learn about that hobby through the content. You meet people, it gives you ideas that you potentially can bring in back to your content creation because you now have a different perspective on a certain topic. And just be out there. Don't worry about the content. Don't do that for the content. There's so many times in the past, especially early on, I had that habit of like I would bring my camera everywhere, especially if I'm traveling. If I'm traveling, I'm like, oh my God, there's an opportunity for me. Like I should have camera. And all of a sudden you forget about experiencing, say, the city that you're in, because all you keep thinking about is like, where do I put the camera? What is the idea for the video? What do I need to do? Right? Like you do a lot of that. It's cool. Sometimes you have a lot of memories from that recorded, but like being in the moment also matters. And that's what I value a lot more. And that's very transparently part of the reason why this format works, because it allows me to disengage and I'm no longer traveling with my camera. I have my, like, iPhone is good enough. If I need to record something, take a photo of something that I'm going to use in a piece of content in the future, I'll absolutely do that with my phone and it's going to work just fine. But in reality, being able to just disengage, not worry about the numbers. I check the studio maybe once a week to see how the video is performing. Primarily, I check it to make sure the published videos came out on time because I record and edit about a week ahead. So just making sure stuff actually is posted and it's out there and people can see it. Like that's a big one. And the views, I almost barely look at them. Like I look and see if something interesting popped. I'm like, I wonder what it popped. Or comments. Love reading comments and responding to them. But otherwise, I'm like, the video's out there. Next video is already in progress, so I don't have to worry about it. I can just go chill, focus on family, focus on my 9 to 5, and I'll come back next Saturday, Sunday when I'm recording this video, so I'm going to do it all over again. It was, again, if you've been on my channel, if you've seen some of my videos, the cool part and selfish part is that a lot of these things resonated with the points that I've made in the past. But again, coming from Ludwig, coming from someone who's been doing it for also 80 years, who've been very successful with it, who continues to push the boundaries of what is possible, and also he's in the streaming space and I don't talk about streaming a lot. That's something maybe as a hobby I'll pick up. Who knows? Maybe in the next year or two, I'll just try to stream for the sake of it, even the desktop streaming, just for the sake of experiencing what it's like making that kind of content. That's how I fell into the short form. I've experimented with different short form. I fell eventually into a certain format. It's again, very simple format. I'm a simple guy and it works for me and I like doing it. And I've been doing it daily for whatever, now 2-3 years, I think, which is kind of crazy to think about. So who knows, maybe I'll fall into it and I'll actually really enjoy it. And all of a sudden you'll see me recording this videos live on stream instead of doing the VOD like this way as I'm doing right now. But who knows? That's the exciting part. The beautiful part. We'll have free will. We don't need too much to do this. Like even the camera that I have is an overkill. Your iPhone, your cell phone, your Droid phone, whatever you're using, it will be fine. As long as you have passion for the topic that you're about to discuss, and as long as there's some value for a single individual out there. You do those, you're fine. Everything else will just incrementally improve, grow, and you look back a year at your content that you just started with, and hopefully you'll cringe. And when you cringe, that means that you've grown. That's one of my goals. Look back a year ago. If you do not cringe at the content that you've made, you didn't go fast enough, far enough. So that should be the focus. And again, Professor Ludwig did a great job. I link both of the videos that I used to kind of like put this together down in the description below, including the name of that group that I forgot about. Again, apologies. They again, as I said, they seem to be a fun crew. And yeah, I'll see you next Saturday. Peace.